Hello, my friend, and welcome. I would like to do an experiment with you. This is something that I've been experimenting with recently, which when I do my silent transmissions in the group, in the beginning I was doing them with my eyes closed. And this was sort of it was something that I did, and it was also sort of an indication of where you find the truth of the transmission, which is in you. The transmission is really in you always. This is the self. This is God. This is the true nature of what you are is in you. But you perceive it before you're aware of that in you. You perceive it in others, in a teacher, in a guru, in something else. You see this in something else. And recently I've been doing this with open-eyed transmission or open-eyed samadhi. I didn't know before that I could do that, but for the last 4 weeks I've been doing open-eyed samadhi. And samadhi essentially is the end of the dream. So when you experience samadhi, body, mind, and the world disappear. This is all a dream. The true nature of what we are is the indivisible, infinite self, or God. This is what everything really is. It's not as it appears to be in the dream. And so in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, what happens is the dream dissolves, the dream disappears. It's like waking up from a sleeping dream. There is no dream. What remains, what's left, is not something that we can express in words. It's not form. It's not being or non-being. We can only say neti neti, not this, not that. We cannot say what we truly are. We cannot say what reality is or what truth is. There's no words that can really describe this. I mean, we use words to describe it as God or the self or something like that, quantum field or something. These are words that describe something that has no name and cannot be described with words. But to use language, we do the best that we can. So this little experiment that I would like to do with you is that while I do this open-eyed samadhi and go into the state of where the world and form and the body, mind, and all this dissolves, and what remains is the self, while that happens, the transmission seems to be stronger than with my eyes closed. And I think I'm asking as part of the experiment for you to do this with me. There's a practice called gazing, where you look into, and the way to do it is you look into one eye. I would say to look into this eye, my left eye, because that eye seems to have a little bit more power. More energy is coming through that eye. I can feel it coming through. There's enormous energy like flowing through. Even though I'm not really aware of a body, I can tell that there's energy flowing through, and there's a little bit more coming through this eye than the other eye. But when you do gazing practice, you want to look at only one eye, because if you look at two eyes, your eyes kind of go back and forth. You're looking from here to there, to there, to there, and you want to keep it focused on one particular eye, really focused on just one thing. That's part of the gazing practice and part of the best way to do this little experiment with me. And what happens when you're doing this, a lot of interesting things can happen. You can have a lot of really interesting experiences, and some of it can be frightening. And when I say focus on this eye, as I realized that I didn't say to someone the last time, he was concerned because his focus became soft. In other words, defocused. His eyes were defocusing, and he wasn't seeing this sharply. But that's not the kind of focus that I'm talking about. That happens often, and it should happen, that your sense of a sharp focus sort of falls away and the eyes become defocused. They're not really focused, but that's okay, because what you're really looking at, what you're really perceiving is something beyond form, beyond a dream. So if form becomes defocused, that's fine. That's a natural thing, that form, your eyes will be defocused on form, because then you're focusing on something else. You're focusing on what's formless, the self, your true nature, where this energy comes from. So that's important. The other thing that happens, which is when I did this 30 years ago, before this awakening, I did this with my Sangha. We did this a couple of times, and it was quite disturbing to me, is because looking at the person, their face kept changing into something else. You know, a young person would become an old person. A male would become a female would become a male. They would become different species. All these different things would happen when I'm looking at this face, and that disturbed me because I wanted them to be, in the dream, they're what they appear to be. They're that person. That's what the dream says. They're what they appear to be. But in reality, that's not really true. What they appear to be is not what they are. They're the self. They're something that's formless and infinite, eternal, limitless. That's the truth of what everything is. So in the dream, we have this illusion that they are what their body appears to be, that that's who they are. And when you do this gazing practice, often that starts falling apart. The dream falls apart. And that's part of it, and that's why it's a little challenging for us, because we want the dream to hold together. This is our reality, the dream. And when the dream starts disappearing, evaporating, falling apart, we can be very disturbed by it in the beginning. So what I suggest, if you're willing to do this, and you don't have to, in any moment you can just close your eyes, you know, but stay with it as long as you can. And let the experiences that happen just be experiences, just something that's happening. It's all for your benefit. So just let whatever happens happen. And it can be strange. It can be unusual. It's a more powerful, people have found that this is even more powerful than the regular transmission with my eyes closed is, which is pretty powerful anyways. So this transmission, open-eyed samadhi, and you looking at this, looking into this eye, focusing on this eye, seems to have more power than even the closed eye samadhi does, the closed eye transmission. So if you're willing to do it, do it. And please write in the comments what your experience is, if you are, because I learned from this. As I say, even with my eyes open, the world and the dream really changes and eventually just dissolves and disappears. So I'm not aware of what happens with you. There is no world. There is no other in my experience. So when you tell me what your experience is, that's how I learn. That's how I learn what the transmission is doing, how it's affecting you. I don't know in any other way, because as I say, body, mind, and world disappear, and there's only the self. So your information, what you tell me, is how I learn. So that's important for me. So if you're willing to do this experiment with me, and I'm only experimenting with it, this is only the 4th week that I've done it, but I feel that it is strong. I feel that it's a good thing to do. It feels right, and so far from what I've heard from people, it is. So please, if you will, share this experiment with me. And if you will, let me know what you experience. It's best to do this transmission in silence because it's the most powerful in this way. And give yourself time. Give yourself a space where you can be silent or where there's no distractions, because you really want to focus. And as I said, this isn't focus like focusing a camera lens. If everything becomes soft, loses its shape, loses its solidity, that's the falling apart of the dream and the opening to truth, something beyond form, beyond the dream. So allow whatever happens to happen. Whatever happens is okay. Let whatever happens just happen. If you're disturbed by it, let that disturbance happen. Don't worry about it, just to let it be. If it feels too much for you, you can close your eyes at some point and then try opening again and continuing with it. If it's too much to do it on this day, then do it on another day. It's an experiment in experience. How solid is this dream really? When you start seeing through it, you begin to experience truth, your true nature. Somebody said as I begin speaking, then the form comes back to being Peter. But that's also a dream. That's also an illusion. Let whatever be, be. You don't need to understand it. You won't be able to. Nobody understands truth. It's beyond the dream, beyond thought. And yet it is what you are. Beyond the dream, beyond thought, beyond form. And this is a way to begin to experience that. This body may appear to be smiling, but that's just because the nature of the self is bliss. Continuous, always unchanging, causeless bliss. Don't expect to experience this. Don't expect anything. Just allow what's happening to happen, what appears to appear. Don't judge it. Just allow it to be. You're already learning a lot from this, even if your mind doesn't understand. Thank you, my friend, for sharing this experiment with me. This was a big practice and teaching of Ramana Maharshi, this gazing, this open-eyed samadhi, this open-eyed meditation from him. He was in samadhi all the time, always the self. All he saw was the self. But in looking into his eyes, people were transformed. The dream fell apart for a moment, and the truth of their true nature came through. So I learned that the silent transmission was a very powerful teaching, a wonderful teaching that transcends words and thoughts and beliefs and form. And now I'm beginning to realize too and learn that this open-eyed samadhi also has that effect and brings even more teaching and power with it. It's not something that I understand. It's something that I experience. And what I learned from you and the other people I've done this with is also teaching me. So please share this experience, your experience of this, no matter what it is. It doesn't matter. Whether it's nothing, whether it's something, whether it's disturbing or frightening, whether it's bliss, whether it's peace, whatever it is, it's useful for me to hear, to understand how it's affecting you. And that's why I'm doing it. Thank you, my friend. Please share this in a comment, or you could write to me, email if you want to do it, or message, or on Facebook, or email if you want. You can find my email on my website. I'll make a link to that if you want to share it privately. But if you share it in the comments section, other people can read it, and that's useful for them. Somebody may have had the same experience, but be a little shy about saying it. And when you say it, it's like, oh, I'm not the only one. And we're never the only one. We are the only one, but we're not a unique person that's separate from other people. We are the totality. But feeling that we're a unique, separate individual person can make us feel shy that we're not like others or something like that. So we might be shy about sharing something. So when someone else shares it, we feel more connected. So it's very useful to do that for others. And it's very useful for me. This is the way I know how people are having this experience. And this is interesting because I'm making a video now. This is not a live one. Every Monday I do this live at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. You can attend that if you would like. There's no cost. It's on Zoom. You can find out about it on the website. So I do this live with people, but it doesn't matter because I've done silent transmissions before on video, and people years later have had an experience, the same experience as if it's in person live. This is not time and space are part of the dream. They don't exist in reality, in truth. And this, doing this as a video that you see, days after, years after I make it, and have the same experience as if it's happening right at this moment, is another proof of this. This is beyond space and time. Really is. And I've seen this over and over. Not something that my mind understands, but people comment, like, that was amazing. Years after I make a video, that they'll have this experience. And of course, doing it through Zoom, people are all over the world. Space has nothing to do with it. They're feeling this energy and this transmission just as they used to in the same room with me. And making a video that people see later shows that time also isn't truth, isn't reality. There's something more than we can understand with our minds here. And part of this open-eyed meditation, open-eyed transmission, the gazing practice, is another example of this. It shows us that the dream begins to fall apart right in front of our eyes. Is it as solid and real as we think? Well, this is showing us that it's not. But we learn from experience, not from thoughts, not from words, not from belief, but from direct experience. Thank you, my friend. I look forward to your comments.